But overall, extrapolating curves into the future is a monk's game. It's amazingly easy, and it usually produces amazingly raw results. What we should understand is the dynamics behind them instead. That's going to help us make qualitative predictions.
We're not. That's the answer for you.
I think we're going to get AI around the middle of the century. Plus or minus a lot. But, well, it's better to have a precise vague answer than like a completely flitting vague answer.
Okay, I completely agree. Yes, plus minus quite a lot.
Middle of the century also?
Center of the middle of century, but long tails in all directions.
Truly develop a truly human level AI, then we could make progress on this and build a superhuman AI. So my question is the only realistic thing we have working, or what we're working on at the moment, is the Blue Brain project? I hear there's a lot of hype about this, and the head of our department at UCL has the Blue Brain posted on his office wall and all. So I'd like to know your opinions. Is the Blue Brain going to get us our ticket to Asia?
Well, let's answer that question. I think the Blue Brain is ambitious, but it's also overhyped. And the problem is that they're trying to simulate a small part of the brain, a cortical column, which as a neuroscientist I'm all in favor of. It's just that we have no way of actually testing whether the result is right. They actually need to have a correct connectivity and some way of measuring what's going on inside a real cortical column before we know whether we're actually approaching truth or just producing beautiful scientific graphs. But I'm rather hopeful about it. When it comes to brain emulation, it's a very cumbersome road towards artificial intelligence. It's not the kind of de novo approach to artificial intelligence. That's like climbing a few mountains. You don't even know whether you're climbable or not. But making brain emulation, that's going down to the coast, getting into a ship, sailing around the archipelago, getting past the desert, through the swamp, through the forest, and up on the other side of the mountains. We have a better chance of kind of maybe doing it, but it's going to be an awfully long and hard slog. And meanwhile, those mountaineers doing kind of pure AI might very well beat us to it. But personally, I would like actually human-based machine intelligence, because at least we understand their motivations a little bit better than that enormous space of weird and possible paperclip AIs and superintelligence out there.
Question at that.
Hi. Hello? Hello, yeah. I'd like to ask Anna, the central thesis of your talk is one that I haven't had much time to think about, but about the disappearance of accidents from the universe, the end of accidents. It's one that I'm going to have to think about carefully, I think, because in a certain sense, whether or not it's true depends, I think it stands in opposition to thermodynamics in a certain sense, and whether or not it's true probably depends sensitively on the definition of whether you consider something to have been done by accident, or how the effect that a superintelligent being intends to have and how it wants to order the universe. In a certain sense, it might be more accurate to re-articulate it as the thesis that superintelligent machines will get very good at judging what they know and what they don't know, so that everything that they, in their minds, represent as something they intend to have an effect on. They'll have a very good judgment about all the sort of thermodynamic noise that will happen, and it won't surprise them because they won't choose to intend to affect all that. So they'll have a very restricted set of things that they intend to do that will correspond to what will happen at a more abstract level. But that seems to be what it means, and I think it depends quite sensitively on your definition of what things intend to do, whether or not we'll see the end of accidents.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying that if the AI uses a particular gas as its heat sink, for example, it'll be able to predict every motion of every molecule within that gas. That would violate thermodynamics, I think. I think this is also the answer to the question somebody asked in the first set of questions about chaos theory that we didn't get to. Nevertheless, it seems not inaccurate to me to describe the state of affairs as an end of accidents. I mean, if you're using a particular thing as your heat sink, if you've got a lot of motion molecules all moving about in there that you're not paying attention to the details of, that doesn't mean there are important accidents affecting the details of your life. It doesn't mean you don't have an unprecedented degree of engineering, and it doesn't mean that you'll see any leftover, somewhat ordered margins of the sorts we care about, like canyons or human beings. But good point. I like the reframing.
This is also a question for the last speaker. I guess if I would give it a title, it's like a motivational meltdown. That's what I thought during your speech. Because what do you do with the final accident in your accidentless world of having the volition to want no accidents? That seems to be also a fully accidental thing. That just happens to be your volition. So I imagine the end state of the world you seem to advocate to be super structured, everything structured, no accidents, no unknowns, and then you just shut yourself down too, because why would you go on wanting something in that world?
Because you're an optimizer for X, and if you're an optimizer for X, you don't have to have a higher reason. Every time you're presented with a choice, you say, well, which of these choices will help me increase X? Now, I personally have very sensible X's, like I like, candy and social companionship, but it could have an unsensible X, like wanting reward tokens in its reward counter. What a silly sort of creature would that be? Not like me. But I mean, the answer here doesn't fit in the space. The answer is the same Omohundro paper on the blue sheet that I was pointing to earlier. But the idea is that it looks as though systems that choose which thing is best for X, and you can call them, I tend to call them intelligent. If you want to say that intelligence means having sensible goals like me about candy, then you don't have to. But the idea is that this is a stable attractor that's prone to recursive self-improvement.
Physically, there's an argument that particular intelligence might optimize itself for serendipity and therefore deliberately seek out randomness.
Yes. No unintentional accidents.
So I have a question to try and summarise some of the discussion. It's a question for all three of the panellists. I've heard you sort of agree that there's a reasonable chance that there might be this emergence of superhuman computing power in about the middle of the century, plus or minus some time. So my question is, when that happens, will we actually be glad about the outcome? Will it have been the best thing ever? Or will it be the worst thing ever? What kind of probabilities would you assign to that? So what's the probability that we're going to deeply regret ever getting into that? What's the probability that we're going to think, fantastic, my goodness? And what's the probability, oh, nothing's changed?
70-30 probability of bad, probability of good.
I can't possibly give you probabilities, David. I can say that the probability that nothing will happen is probably sorry, what was the third probability that
nothing much changes. Oh,
nothing much changes. Yes, that seems to me below the low zeros. But I can't give you probabilities, but I can. My gut feeling is that it's going to be very, if it's going to be uncontrolled and accidental, then it's going to end up very badly. Maybe not with the end of the human race. But Anna is here making a point about accidents, and I'm pretty sure an accident, if it happens, it's not going to end well, yes.
I would say 50-50, but there is some good news. I think we can actually push this. I think we can actually make choices and actually tilt things towards the direction of something that would be extremely good. And I completely agree that it's extremely unlikely to be just so. It's going to be extreme of some kind or another. I think that is really what a lot of our discussions today have been about. We're here, we can be envisioning some of the more extreme futures. And some of them might not come to pass, but it's very useful to think about and see what can we actually do about them. Can we kind of future-proof our society and our lives? And I think there are things we can do to reduce the risk of paper clippers getting us and making sure that we might get nicer in artificial intelligences.
With that, I would like you to thank our three final panelists.